Guys, welcome to a classic Western movie review of 1969's Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, starring Paul Newman, Robert Redford and Katharine Ross. Directed by George Roy Hill, this Wild West adventure tells the tale of a pair of outlaws in 1890s Wyoming who find themselves on the run with a posse hard on their heels after a train robbery goes wrong. Now, this, of course, is a beloved classic, a mixture of a buddy comedy, historical fiction and action. Of course, elevated by iconic performances from two of the biggest movie stars of the time, Paul Newman and Robert Redford. Now, it took a genre reaching the end of its popularity and injected it with some counterculture vibes, reflecting the social upheaval of the late 60s. Despite this, it's timeless and one of the great westerns of any decade. Let's take a look. So, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid is set at the twilight of the Old West, and the film loosely follows the real-life outlaws Robert Leroy Parker, Butch Cassidy, and Harry Longbar, the Sundance Kid. Now, Butch is this kind of quick-witted leader played with roguish charm by Paul Newman, and Sundance is the brooding, deadly marksman portrayed by Redford, and they are partners in crime, both lovable rogues who rob trains and live life on the run. Now, one of this movie's strengths for me is its tone. After a decade of wild bunches and spaghetti westerns that either glorified violence or acted as stark warnings of the dangers of gunslinging, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid instead is almost a hangout movie, just a couple of misunderstood dudes trying to make their way in the West. Now, this, I think, is the kind of Western that you show people who don't like Westerns, if that makes sense. The story is deceptively simple, of course, famously written by William Goldman, and it's just a pair of bank and train robbers on the run from a special posse, a super posse, formed to catch them and until they can't run no more and decide to flee to Bolivia, where they wind up in a shootout. And along the way, they'll meet with Katharine Ross's school teacher and Sundance's partner, Etta Place, and an assortment of no-gooders, and of course, take a time out to arse around on a bicycle to the strains of show-stopping song Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, which won Burt Bacharach an Oscar. We'll talk more about that song in a moment or two, but first, this cast. So, of course, the trump card that this movie has is in pairing two of the most charismatic movie stars of the time together to just bounce off one another. Paul Newman as Butch Cassidy comes complete with his signature cheeky smile, and he plays Butch as a dude who's able to talk his way out of danger more often than he shoots his way through it. Newman was coming off classics such as Harper, Hombre and Cool Hand Luke. Now, Robert Redford, on the other hand, was more of a TV star at this point, and this was his breakout role, really. Now, the chemistry between the two is top-notch. It's the soul of the movie. They have banter, a camaraderie, and this kind of unspoken loyalty to one another, and it carries the film. In regards to Katharine Ross, her Etta Place has only a small role, really, but having her around does add some emotional stakes to the guy's journey. Her school teacher turned outlaw is fully aware that her romance with Sundance may not really have a future. A famous or infamous, maybe, bicycle riding sequence to the tune of Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, whilst quite a jarring interlude, does provide a brief respite from the action and a moment of happiness in a story before we head off to a life or death shootout. So it's safe to say that musically the film takes a pretty bold swing. Burt Bacharach's soundtrack, especially the aforementioned Raindrops, was pretty divisive even at the time and still feels like it kind of jumps out of nowhere, certainly in a period piece such as this. However, it is one of the things that cement Butch and Sundance as not just another traditional Western, and a bit of a foreshadowing that things may not necessarily go the way you think they will.
Raindrops keep falling on my head, and just like the guy whose feet are too big for his bed, nothing seems to fit.
Now, visually, the film is quite stunning. Cinematographer Conrad Hall capturing golden plains and dusty Bolivian towns, all shot on various locations in Utah, New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona, and California. The scenes in Bolivia shot in Mexico. And I love the film's editing, certainly in the movie's famous montage sequences, like that Bolivia photo one. It definitely gives off the feeling of flipping through an old photo album. And check out that still impressive explosion when the pair, having robbed the same train twice, accidentally used too much dynamite the second time around.
Well, that ought to do it.
Now, the Western era presented here may be one of my favourites in the genre, set in the final years of the Old West. Butch and Sundance arrived with the Wild Bunch to highlight that the passage of time and the loss of freedom and the dying myth of the American outlaw. Now, it will be followed by Western classics such as The Ballad of Cable Hogue, McCabe and Miss Miller, and The Shootist. Now, much like some of the characters in those movies, Butch and Sundance are out of step with the modern world. Their old school skills and code of honour struggle against new ways and changing technologies. And much like the crew in the Wild Bunch, they're less anti-heroes, more tragic figures out of time. And the ending here is, of course, one of the most iconic in cinema history, both triumphant and heartbreaking. It's one of the most famous in the Western genre. Even though this is a 56-year-old film, I won't spoil it here, of course, but despite its 5.5-decade age, it's surprising how timeless this all still feels. Its gags still land, its characters still feel like they have a great dynamic between them. And from a film history perspective, it redefined the buddy movie, influencing everything from Lethal Weapon to Thelma and Louise. Now, the film's success helped cement Newman as a megastar and announced Redford's arrival as a major star. And of course, it led to the later collaboration in 1973's The Sting, which is another great classic. And the movie won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Original Screenplay for Goldman, Best Cinematography for Conrad Hall, and Music for Burt Bacharach. And although critics at the time were a bit mixed on it, audiences loved it. It was the highest grossing movie in the US by a country mile. And I think it's fair to say that its reputation has only grown further. You'll find it now in pretty much every top 10 Western list ever. So Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid is a funny and well shot and sometimes quite poignant Western. It's less about shootouts and action than it is about friendship and the inevitability of changing times. That's not to say that it doesn't have shootouts and action, because it does, and it's great. As good as any Western classic. It's a bonus that it also has true movie star performances, a screenplay that crackles with smart writing and clever dialogue. It's a film that not only captures the mood of the United States in the 1890s, but also the mood of the United States in the late 1960s, the glory days coming to an end, and a pair of tragic heroes being dragged into a modern age. Go check it out.
I think we lost him. Do you think we lost him?
No.
Neither do I.